Hi there, in this video you're going to learn how to solve equations with variables on both sides. So here's an example of that. I have 3x is equal to x plus 8. If you notice here, I have a variable on both sides. I have x here and I have an x here. First thing I want to do is get my x's on one side opposite my constants. So the goal before I start solving this is I have x's on one side and my constants on the other. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract x from both sides of this. So again, you just want to move around your variables first and then play around with your constants. So once I do that, my x minus x just gets me 0, right? And 3x minus x leaves me with 2x. You can think of this as 3x minus 1x equals 2x. Doesn't really matter. So you have 2x is equal to 8. Okay, so once you have this, 2x is equal to 8, just divide both sides. Just divide both sides by 2, and you get your x to be 4. And now you just want to check your work. 3 times 4, you get 12, and 4 plus 8, you get 12 also. So again, by checking your work, you're just plugging in x. You're just plugging in x 4 wherever you see the x is. So here will be 3 times 4 is equal to 4 plus 8, which is what I wrote here. All right, here is our next example. We have 3x minus 2 is equal to x. Again, we want to get our x's to one side. So in other words, here's the equal sign. We want to get x's and we want to get constants. Or we want to get x's and we want to get constants. Doesn't really matter. So in this case, I'm going to move this 3x so that it makes me do less steps. So I'm going to move this 3x over to the right. So minus 3x, and then I'm left with, let me just cancel out my 3x's. So now I'm just left with a negative 2 is equal to 2x. So how do I solve this? The opposite of multiplying x by negative 2 would be just divide by negative 2. And then you get your x to be positive 1. And then you just want to check your work. So anywhere you see x's, you want to plug in your 1's. And then you want to make sure that the equation works out, which it does in this case. Okay, here's another example. We have 5x plus 12 is equal to 3x plus 2. You can move the 5x or you can move the 3x. It really doesn't matter which way you move it as long as you get your x's on one side. So I'm going to just move my 3x in this case, just because if I move 5x, if I subtract 5x from both sides, I'm going to be left with a negative x, and it's just going to make me do more work at the end. So it really doesn't matter what you want to move. I'm going to move 3x. So I'm going to get rid of this 3x by subtracting 3x on both sides. 3x minus 3x gets me 0. I'm left with 2 on the right. And here I'm left with 2x plus 12 to get 2. Now here we all know how to solve this equation, right? You just undo the addition or subtraction first. So 12 minus 12 is just going to get me 0, right? So my 12s here cancel out. And then you're left with 2x is equal to negative 10. Divide both sides by 2, and you get x to be negative 5. And then you just want to check your work. So you have 5 times negative 5 plus 12 is equal to 3 times negative 5 plus 2. And you will get negative 25 plus 12, which is negative 13. Here you get negative 15 plus 2, which is also negative 13. So your equation works out. Why don't you try pausing this video, and when you are done trying to solve this, come back and see, just compare your answer with mine. Okay, by now you should already be done with solving this, so hopefully you got it correct. So the first thing that you should have done was gotten your x's on one side of the equal sign. So in this case, well, I'm going to move this 5x to the left. So I'm going to say 7x minus 5x, right, gets me 2x. So I subtracted my 5x on both sides, and I got 2x is equal to 4. Now we know how to solve this, right? Just divide both sides by 2, and you get x equal 2. And then you just wanted to check your work. So in place of x, you're going to put 2's, and it does work out here, as you can see. Here is our next example. We have 6/5 y plus 8 is equal to 4/5 y minus 10. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my y's on one side of the equation. So I have 6/5 y plus 8 is equal to 4/5 y minus 10. So I'm going to move this 4/5 y to the left. So I'm going to subtract 4/5 y on either side. And then my 4/5 y's are going to cancel, because 4/5 y minus 4/5 y just gets me 0. I'm left with negative 10 on the right side of the equation. And then I'm left with, well, 6/5 y minus 4/5 y gets me 2/5 y. I'm left with 2/5 y plus 8 on the right. So here in this equation, I know how to solve this. Subtract 8 from both sides, right? Because you undo your addition or subtraction first. And then you are left with 2/5 y on the left is equal to negative 18 on the right. Now we want to get our y. Now we want to isolate our y here. We have 2/5 y. So the opposite of multiplying y by 2/5 would be to multiply by the reciprocal, just like we learned in our previous lessons. When you do that, you do 5 times 2, which is 10, 2 times 5, which is 10. So we have 1y, which is what we want on the left. And then here we have negative 18 times 5 halves. Negative 18 times 5 is negative 90. Divided by 2, you end up getting y to equal negative 45. And then you just want to check your work. So anywhere where you have a y, you're just going to plug in that negative 45, and you're just going to see if that if your equation ends up balancing, which in this case it does. All right, and then in this last example, we have 3/4 x minus 3 is equal to 1/4 x plus 3. So in this case, we want to get our x's on one side. So in this case, I'm going to move this 1/4 x. It really doesn't matter which one you move, but I just don't want negatives. So I'm going to subtract 1/4 x on both sides. My 1/4 x minus 1/4 x, those two cancel out. And I'm just left with 3 on the right is equal to, here I have 3/4 minus 1/4, which is 2/4 x minus 3. Okay, so here we know how to solve this. Just add 3 on both sides, and my 3's cancel out here, and you're left with 2/4 x is equal to 6. So in order to get x by itself here, you're just going, what's the opposite of multiplying 2/4? The opposite of multiplying 2/4 would be multiplying by the reciprocal. So multiply by 4 halves. And then you just do 6 times 4, which is 24, divided by 2, and you get 12. So finally, we just want to check our work. Anywhere you see an x, you want to plug in 12, and then just make sure the equation is balanced. So I already solved this. Once you already solve it, you should get 60 equals 6 on both sides. There is your check. So some concluding thoughts. You want to start off by getting your x's on one side opposite your constants, and then you want to solve using what you already know about equations. All right, so it doesn't really matter which one you want to move, which x's you want to move first. Like in this case, you could have subtracted 3/4 x, but you would get a negative. Here you would get negative x's, which is not bad. You can still play around with negatives. I would just prefer not to. All right, so I hope you learned how to solve equations with variables on both sides. Thank you for watching.